I thought it was going to bless the food. We were talking about bread, right? Breaking bread together. Okay, hi. Thanks everybody for coming. My name is Dan Ihara, and today we're going to talk about planning for the future and beyond. What we've found over the last 17 years of being doing this is we found that a lot of folks had wealth in real estate, and they didn't really have a plan, right? They didn't have a plan to build wealth, and most of them didn't have a plan to transfer wealth. And so we started an organization called Keller Williams Real Estate Planner. Keller Williams Real Estate Planner is a community of real estate agents around the United States, actually all over the world. There's 225 members in our community today that we train and certify to provide this level of service where they are in their local markets. So what we're going to cover today is we're going to talk about the proactive and reactive perspectives many of us have. And it'll hopefully open your eyes and mind to what may be a different way of looking at things. We're going to talk about how do I know when it's time to move, right? Many people call us up and say, I'm getting older now, but I like my home. But I know at some point I got to move. So how do I know when it's time? And what are my living options? Where could you go if your home doesn't work for you? What should you do with your home? And then how do I pass it on and create a legacy with it today while I'm alive versus waiting till I pass on and bad things show up? How many of you have heard of a family who fought over real estate after mom and dad died? All right? Almost all of us, right? Why does that happen? Well, it happens because we really don't have a good plan to transfer wealth. And we'll end today with talking about how that works. When should I start planning? And we'll end right into this. So there's two types of perspectives we all have. You're either going to have a proactive perspective or a reactive perspective, right? The proactive person says, I'm getting older, the kids are gone, I'm retired, and you know what? I think I have enough money, but I don't know what I want to do, but I think I need to downsize, right? I want to downsize something from a big house to something smaller, right? That's the proactive person. Proactive person sees a life change and maybe in steps versus I'm going to go from here, my house to the grave. There's steps along the way because our life's going to change along the way. Our health's going to change along the way, right? Our needs and wants are going to change along the way. Versus the reactive person. The reactive person says, I'm good where I am, and I'm not going to make a change. And then unfortunately, bad shows up. Unfortunately, a health incident or an accident shows up, and now that person's reacting. They're reacting to life's circumstances. And I kind of liken that to these light bulbs here. Well, we never know. It's working now, right? These light bulbs are working now, but we don't know when it's going to go out. Well, it's the same thing with our life and our health, right? We don't know. But we do know if this light bulb was, if the lifespan of this light bulb was 15 years, and in year 14, we know that we should probably plan, right? And so that's what we're looking at is how to look at it. What was that? Somebody else? So the good news is you get to choose. You get to choose how you want to create a plan for yourself. You get to choose if you're going to be proactive or you're going to be reactive, right? It's your choice. So how do I know when it's time to move? Well, if your home is too large now that the kids are gone, many times you have a 3 or 4 or 5 bedroom home and you had several kids and now they're all gone. I can't tell you how many homes I've gone into where a person finally says they want to sell their home. We walk around and I see a closed door and I ask, can we open the door? I open the door and this little Johnny's room. Well, little Johnny's 55 years old and looks the same as he left when he was 17. Okay. Because why do we do that? Because we love our kids. We cherish them. And we think in our head they're going to come back, right? We think they're going to, and I can tell you statistically, once they leave the home and they leave the island, they have a chance of coming back, right? Once they get a significant other, odds of that decreases dramatically. Once they have children, they probably will never come back. Maybe for vacation, right? And that's what we see. We see this a lot. And a lot of folks say, well, I'm going to save this for Johnny. Well, Johnny doesn't want it, and Johnny's not coming back. He has a life somewhere else, right? He built a life somewhere else. Is your home or yard too much work to maintain? Maybe the mango tree is getting too big. Maybe There's homes going to have some deferred maintenance that because we're on a fixed income, we don't fix them. Over time it gets bad. Paint's a quick example. If you've driven anywhere around the island, you'll see houses with peeling paint. Paint, just so you know, is a sealant, and you want to paint your home regularly and keep it maintained. Are you tired of cooking and cleaning? Anybody tired of cooking and cleaning? Okay, I'm glad my wife's not here. She would be raising her hand. Yeah. At some point, we're going to feel tired of cooking and cleaning. Does your home have too many steps? We have clients that had 78 steps to get to her house. And when I went to her, she moved into a retirement community. When I went to her, and she was very healthy. She was like 75 years old. She was about this tall, stood tall. And I asked her, well, help me understand, what's the secret to your health? She said, Dad, I got 78 steps to get to my house. I got my own Stairmaster. But here's the thing she said to me right after that. She says, well, here's what you don't understand, Dad. My neighbor, 2 doors down, we bought the house the same time in the 50s. Well, she fell on her steps and broke her hip. And she never, ever saw her house again. And so Mrs. Softa says, that's not going to be me. I'm not going to be the reactive one. I'm going to be the proactive one. I have thousands and thousands of stories of both ways that this can go. And I'm just the observer of life, of society. But what I'm doing today is I want to share things with you so that maybe you can self-discover your best path, right? I don't have a right to choose. Nobody in your family doesn't have a right to choose. You get a right to choose the life you deserve today and in the future. But I can tell you something, when you plan, things are going to show up a little better. It's going to be a little better. Are you living alone and concerned about security? The crime today is staggering and it's concerning and it's heart-wrenching. How many of you have that app called Nextdoor? Don't look at it. There's crime every bloody day. Daytime, you see videos of people looking at the camera, going down and stealing stuff right in your front of your house. People walking through people's homes. Well, my concern is, what if you're not young and healthy and can deal with this? What if you're older? What happens? What happens when you're alone? The worst thing is what happens when people know that you're alone. That's what's scary to me. And would you like to make your own decisions about where and when your next move will be? Or would you like to leave it up to somebody else? So as we get older, things are going to happen. We're going to get forgetful. We're going to get a little colder. Our skin, our derma gets thinner. Our vision's going to go. I have glasses. Your hearing's going to go. Things are going to start changing in life, right? But let's just say you woke up one day and you saw your neighbor across the street, Mrs. Chun, we'll call her, and you saw her every day. She would come in and she would sweep the yard and she would pick up the newspaper and she would go into her house and you wouldn't see her. And every day you saw this. Well, one day you woke up and you found that she didn't get her newspaper and she didn't do the leaves. You get a little concerned, but it's okay because maybe she's sick. So then you go to work, you come back, the next day you see the same thing. Now you're concerned. So you go across the street, you knock on her door, you say, hey, Mrs. Wong, are you okay? Well, you hear their TV on, you see her car in the garage, you know she's home, but she's not responding. What happens then? Well, you keep pounding on the door until she doesn't respond, you're going to call the police. You call the police are going to come and do the same thing until they break her door down to get to her. Almost all the time, she's on the ground. Unfortunately, some of the time, she's expired. There's a really sad thing that's happening today is people living alone and things happening to their house and they're actually dying in their own home. People having accidents and they're falling and hitting their head. I had a guy call me. He came to one of our seminars. He says, Dad, I'm okay. I'm just going to stay home as long as I can. And then I get a call from him and he called me and says, hey, I need you to come to the hospital. I go, well, why are you in the hospital? He says, well, I just come. I need you to come to the hospital. I go to the hospital and I said, what happened? He said, I fell down in my house on a Friday and I broke my hip and I couldn't get to the phone. Fortunately, he didn't show up at church. So the pastor came to say what was going on. They found him and he was alive. But many times they are. What will typically happen is when the person goes to the hospital has to discharge them. They don't want to keep them in the hospital, right? They have to discharge them. In order to discharge, my case manager has to be in charge of that. And they're going to look for a guardian, somebody who's going to care for this person. If there's no next of kin, they're going to call the Office of Public Guardian. It's a state office you pay taxes to that is designed to take care of people who cannot take care of themselves. Once they do that, they're going to move them to a physical therapy until hopefully they can get to a care home. And then what will happen is the guardian will go to the judge in downtown, and they'll get a conservator assigned to that person's financial and health affairs. At that point, that person is proven to the state of Hawaii they can't go home. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of these cases every single month. We've been serving these people for over a decade now. And these are the reactive ones. So I see both sides of the state. I see people who are proactive and they're living a great life. And then I see the opposite. And it really hurts inside when I have to go and help these people that something bad showed up. That's what's going to happen if you don't make decisions on your own. It can happen. The other side, the better side of that story is your kids will say, Mom and Dad, you can't stay home. You left the stove on too many times. You banged the car too many times. You fell down too many times. You got forgetful too many times. And that's going to creep up. It's like this light bulb. We never know when that's going to happen. But I lived in this world for 17 years now, serving older adults and making transitions, and I've seen good and bad show up. And that's why I'm on a national platform today to help people create a plan so they're proactive and not reactive. So what are my living options? Well, you can age in place at home or live with a loved one. That's a great option, right? Stay there as long as you can. At some point, you might need help. Or go in with your kids if they want you there. Downsizing to a smaller house or condo, we see a lot of proactive people doing that today. The people that are doing that today are the baby boomers that they want to travel. They don't need the size of the house, and they want to simplify life, right? Adult residential care homes, these are small homes, single-family homes in all of our island. They have 5 residents that are registered in the state of Hawaii. There's those, and then there's foster care homes, which are not licensed. Is an option for somebody who needs care. You don't typically choose to go there. You go there because you need to go there, because you need care. And we're the fan of the retirement communities. We've been doing this a long time. We work with every retirement. We have clients in every single retirement community here in the islands. And we can see people before they're in their home, and then after when they go into the retirement home community, that they change, they're happier, they're less stressed. Right? They have food, they have care. The part of our stress comes from the worry for some of us that our kids have to worry about us. That's part of it for some of us. And some of us, we just don't want that. And so they go to the retirement community so the kids don't have to worry. How many's been on a cruise ship? Anybody been on a cruise ship? How was that? You guys like it? Is it good? What was good about it? Food. What else was good about it? Entertainment? Everything is there, right? It sounds like a retirement community, except there's 2 things. 1, you're not going to have an iceberg. And two, there's no illegal gambling that we know of, okay? But I've seen guys playing poker, but I'm not going to get nosy. But yeah, that's what happens. It allows you to have that kind of life in a retirement community. And I've seen it many, many times. So there's a number of levels of care. And right now you all are independent living. You can do everything on your own, right? You can cook and clean and take care of yourself. At some point you might need assisted living, right? Assisted living, help with your activities of daily living, ADL as we call it. Bathing, dressing, grooming, toileting, continence, mobility. At some point in your life, should you be blessed to live long enough, you will likely need that level of care. So at some point. And then skilled nursing facilities, we call them SNFs. They are designed for people that need a nurse, a registered nurse. And anytime you have an intrusion in your body, an IV or a tracheotomy or of some level, if you have an open wound, skilled nursing is what the state of Hawaii will allow to take care of for you. The biggest challenge we're all going to have is memory care. And that's going to be the biggest challenge because today's technology is keeping our bodies, our physical bodies, alive longer, right? Alive longer. My father, when he was 70, he had a 5 artery bypass in one day. All 5 arteries were changed. He was a champ. He was a champ. He lived for another 14 years after that. They can put a little hole in your vein and run a wire all the way up your arm and stick it into your heart and put a balloon in. It's called a stent. And then open up your valve and give you another 10 years of life. There's one thing that they can't do. It's our minds. They can't help us with that. And what we know from gerontologists and scientists that tell us that the loss of memory, whatever you want to call it, dementia, Alzheimer's, these are oftentimes stimulated because of a lack of cerebral stimulation, meaning your mind's not thinking enough. You're not in community with people, right? Isolation is the worst enemy for this because who do you talk to when you're by yourself? Nobody, right? So you don't have the cerebral stimulation. You want to keep that you have to do that because nobody can help you with that. Only you can. And that's why we're fans of retirement communities, because that's what you get. At least 3 times a day, you will have cerebral stimulation because you got to eat, and you're going to go downstairs, and you're going to have fun, and you're going to talk. My mom and dad, bless their heart, they passed recently. We moved them from their house to a retirement community near their home, and it was the best thing for them. Mom kept falling down. Dad couldn't pick her up. And he had to be the person providing all the food, right? They moved in and all of a sudden things changed. Attitude changed. Food was good. Didn't have to go hunt for it, right? Care was there. Medicine management was there, making sure they take their medicine. All these things can create a life worth living for you that might be better than staying at home. Good news is that everything's all included, right? Room, board, food. Later today, we'll have the team at Ivy come up and share specifics about this community here. So aging in place options, well, some of it's family taking care of family, right? If you want to stay home. Good and bad with that, right? How many have been caregivers? Caregivers. How easy was that? Right? Yeah. I applaud you. That's incredible what you've done, because that's probably the hardest job you've probably ever had. And if you're staying at home, there's 2 levels of service you can bring into the home. One's called home care. The other's called home health care. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then there's adult day services when you're going to go out of the home for take care, basically. So the home care services, if you're at home, it's a private company that comes into your home, and they're going to provide companion services, but really help with your activities of daily living, personal care, bathing, dressing, grooming, toileting, incontinence, that kind of thing. The biggest also things that they'll help you with is preparing your food, cooking and cleaning, and maybe transportation. So if you're trying to stay home longer and you want to do this model, you're going to have to bring people in for that. They'll take you to Longs to get your prescription, take you to the doctor. All those things can be done by a service like this. Good and bad with everything. I tell people there's good and bad with everything. Great that they come in your home. Great you can stay in your home. The downside is what I've heard. People don't like random people coming into their home because it won't be the same person. Right? You're not going to have consistent service. Oftentimes, it may not be comfortable. Then home health care is more of a clinical model. That's when you have an intrusion in your body, or it's like a skilled nurse, right? So you have to have somebody coming in that's licensed to do so. The state of Hawaii is the one that governs the requirements around this. Now, Medicare will cover some of it, but keep in mind it's not a 100% solution. You must be homebound. Your physician has to prescribe that, and it covers up to 100 days per incident. So it's not going to cover you forever. It's not a guaranteed take care of me forever kind of thing. Now, if you have long-term care insurance, you'll want to make sure that your family knows what it is. because in the event something bad shows up, where are you going to be? You're going to be in the hospital. You want to start the long-term care. How many of you have long-term care insurance, by the way? Awesome. Okay. Keep paying it. You paid it this long anyways. But what you want to know is you want the phone number and your account number available for your kids. Because whoever's going to care for you, because at some point, once you're in the hospital, you want to activate that as soon as you can, because there's typically a 60 to 90 day waiting period until they reimburse you, right? So the sooner you make the claim, the sooner you'll get reimbursed. Okay. How much does it cost? Well, home care runs you about up to $24 an hour for a person, $30 an hour for a couple. Home health care, much more, $35 to $75 an hour. The most staggering number is if you need 24-hour care, it's looking at $15,000 to $20,000 a month. Depends on the level of need. Okay. This is the reality. And this is what we want people to understand, because you're going to want to plan for the worst case scenario. When you have long-term care insurance, it'll cover a portion of that, depending on your plan, right? So it just depends on what plan you have. Retirement communities, again, we're big fans of retirement communities because it provides so much, right? For one fee, you get all your meals, right? All your cooking and cleaning is done for you. And the meals look quite impressive. I can't wait, actually. So let's get through this so I can eat. All your security, you don't have to worry. You're not going to have to worry about somebody coming onto your property, somebody breaking in. You're not going to worry about that. It's a secured environment. And all your maintenance and repairs are gone. If you need something, pick up the phone. They'll help, right? They'll help. All your utilities, I think except cell phone, right? What utilities are covered here? Everything except cell phone, right? Yeah, so all your utilities except cell phone. So what does that do? It minimizes all the little things you were having to do. Paying all these little bills, you don't have them anymore, right? This is what we call simplifying life. Your food, your cleaning, your activities, everything's here. They have a shuttle, right? They got a fitness center. They got pools. It's all inclusive. It's like that cruise ship, remember, without the icebergs. and I think the food's going to be as good as a cruise ship. Looks like it. So how do you pay for care? How do you pay for care? Well, a lot of folks, they want to think, well, I'm just going to liquidate my liquid assets, cash out my retirement, cash out my stocks or my bonds. And my suggestion to you is, before you do so, understand your tax ramifications. There's this thing called capital gains taxes that you'll be responsible for. So be careful about that before you decide on selling things before you do that. Many are selling their home. Why? Because there's a capital gains tax exemption, and that's the only asset that the government gives you up to $500,000 tax-free dollars, tax-free. There's no other asset you own that you can sell that you'll not be taxed on. Real estate's the last one. Some people are just pulling equity out of their property because they've got tons of equity in it. You could get a home equity line of credit. That's possible too. The downside of that is you have to be able to qualify, right? So if you can't qualify, then you would be limited to what you can get out of it, or if any. Many of them are really using investment property strategies. If they have other investment properties, what can you do with it such that it does what you want it to do? So when we meet with our clients, we first question is, what's the goal? What's your end goal? And then we work our way backwards. How do we get there? Based on what you have and what you own and your wealth and your income and your expenses and your lifestyle and your health, then we can start creating a plan that's customized for you. So what should I do with my home? Well, you could rent it, right? Most people don't like doing that because they just don't want to have the humbug of having another property you got to worry about. But that's an option. Some are going to pass it on to a family member. Please be careful. My suggestion is do not do that. And here's why. If Mark, if your mom had a property and she gave it to you while she was alive and she paid $20,000 for it and it's worth $1 million today, she gave you her cost basis of $20,000, which means you have to pay all the gain from $20,000 to $1 million. We're talking about 30% here, 25 to 30%. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands. So What we suggest is you keep it in your trust, in your name, and the trust indicates upon my demise, it's going to go to this child. That's the way to do it. Because then when you pass away, they get a step up in cost basis, which means the cost basis is the same value as a market value, and there's no capital gains tax, zero capital gains tax. The number one enemy for generational wealth is taxes. And we have to understand how it works because it's going to matter. And it can matter in significant ways. Unfortunately, I met a guy yesterday. He was told to pass all of his properties to his kids. He has 4 of them. They're all over $1 million, and they all were purchased for $20,000. He just put a huge burden on his kids. So the only way for the kids to avoid that is to do a 1031 exchange, sell the property, but they're required to buy another one. See, if you leave it in your name until you die, you get a step in cost basis. The kids get the money. They can sell and get all the money, and they don't have to be constrained to buying something else. They can do anything they want with it. And that's why it's so important to understand the tax consequences. Many are selling their home, mainly because of the capital gains tax exemptions. Some are leaving it vacant. Really don't want to recommend that. That's the worst thing for you to do is keep a vacant home. For crime, number one, for utilities, for fire. By the way, your insurance company won't cover you if it's vacant. Okay. So once it's vacant, if they find out if it burns down, you got zero. You got a piece of dirt. Okay. So be very careful about that. So what do I do with rental properties? Well, number one, they could do nothing. I can't tell you how many people do nothing. Like they're living and their homes are vacant. The guy I was talking to yesterday, he's got 2 of the 4 are vacant. Some people are allowing the loved ones live there. That makes sense, right? If you have wealth in real estate and you want to bless your kids, that's a great way to do it. Right? Let them live there. You could rent it, generate income, use it as a second home, right? You can 1031 exchange this property, which is sell it and buy something to get more cash flow. So the first question is, what matters most? If cash flow matters, then we can measure that. We do a thing called the asset performance test. What that does is it measures every asset you own as if you're measuring a stock ticket on the Wall Street. You will know the rate of return. And what most people don't understand in real estate is wealth is built by cash flow, the rate of return, and appreciation over time. With the cash flow, the question is, what would you do with it? What can you do with it? What would you love to do with it? And then support family with the 1031 exchange. And later on, we'll share a little bit more about that. Real quickly, though, we had a client that grandma, she was probably, I think, maybe 80 range, right? And she had a beat-up old house that was given to her. So she didn't live in. She didn't want to fix it up. She just said, I just want to get rid of this thing. It's a fire hazard, right? And I said, so, well, in order to do this, you're going to pay a significant amount of capital gains, right? So if you did a 1031 exchange and bought something else that you did not live in, then you don't pay any of that capital gains tax. And I asked her, well, tell me about your kids. And said, well, my kids are all healthy and they're all good and financially stable. And then, so what, do any of your kids have children? I said, yeah, I have a granddaughter. And they kept speaking of one specific granddaughter. Great kid, always took care of them, went to school, did great in school, became a nurse, has a great job, has great credit. What does she not have? A down payment, right? So what happened? We did a 1031 exchange. We sold the investment property grandma had. We bought a primary residence for the granddaughter that they co-owned together. Grandma owned, I think, 70%. The granddaughter owned 30%. Why is that good? Because that's where they wanted to go anyway. Their intention was to give it to that child anyways. Instead of waiting until they're dead, having somebody try to figure that out, they did it while they're alive. And the beautiful thing of that story is now every Sunday they have dinner in the condo. She sold a $700,000 beat up house and she bought a $900,000 condo. And the granddaughter took a small mortgage out, right, of $200,000 because she could do that. She had enough income. She didn't have the $700,000 down though. When grandma passes away, it'll go straight to her tax-free. Tax-free. This is how we help people create generational wealth. So in our conversations, we talk deep about who your kids are, who your loved ones are, because there's a belief that we have is money is good for the good it does. Money is good for the good it does. So the next question for you is, what good do you want to do? What do you want to bless? And if you know that you're never going to run out of money, meaning you can cover all the costs of care, you'll never run out of money, then why are you holding on to these things and waiting till you die versus allow it to transfer today while you're alive, and bless somebody today while you're alive? And it's a big movement around the country today as a planner. How do I protect my home and my rentals? Well, number one, you want to keep it in your trust. Don't take it out of the trust. Keep it in your trust. Do you know what happens if you take it out of your trust or not have a property funded in a trust? You're going to go to probate. Probate's a judicial system that your life becomes public. Everything you own and owe is public. The world knows what it is. At best, it's about 4 to 6 months. On average, 6 to 12 months. Sometimes it never resolves. I have a client that has one of the biggest estates in Hawaii is 32-year-old probate case. It's a lot of money, right? People with wealth, you must be careful. So you want to keep it in your trust. Maintain your insurance. Some people say, I don't live there. I don't have a mortgage anymore. I mean, it's too expensive, the insurance. I'm going to take it off. That's really concerning. That's the catastrophic protection for you. If bad shows up, you're going to get covered, right? Continue your maintenance, again, throughout your home. Make sure you do that. Secure the perimeter. For those of you who are living by yourself or living in an area where you have people have access to your door, please be careful, because the world's different today than it was when we were growing up. Install motion sensors and alarms. That's a really important thing, because that hopefully can trigger somebody to maybe walk away. But according to my Nextdoor app that I see every day, it doesn't help. They still do it. They still do it. It's horrible. And smoke detectors. Make sure, because there's too many people that die in their own home in a fire because they didn't hear anything because there was no smoke alarm. Right? And if you have, most of us have that, when the smoke alarm goes beep, 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 what do? We take the battery out, right? How good is that alarm for us now? Here's what you can do. You can call the fire department. Call the fire department and ask them to change your smoke alarm. They will come and do it for free. They'll do it for free. Yeah. They'll put it up. They'll provide it. They'll do everything for free. Why? Because they care and they know that it's could save a life. They can save a life. So don't get on a ladder. Just call the fire department. Okay. So looking for the complete solution. A lot of folks are really stressed through this whole process of transition, right? People that want to go into a retirement community, it's overwhelming. Right? And so the areas that we help them focus on, number one is downsizing and decluttering, removing all the personal items, because over time, for some reason, we seem to collect things. I don't know does anybody know anybody's got a little too many things? Yeah, no? Don't look at your neighbor. Okay. Yeah, we all do. This is a habit that we all end up having with. Yeah, so that's the first thing you want to do, even before you need to move, right? And then remove all the unwanted items from the property. And then oftentimes people say they want to fix it up a little so that, maybe they can get more money for it, or they can get more rent for it, or whatever it is. We, over the last 17 years, have been renovating homes. So we help people do that. It's construction management consulting. So we'll go in and renovate homes. We do it every week. I have a contractor that I'm not a general licensed contractor, but my partner is. And I know we've probably done 100 homes over the last several years, 8 years actually. He will go into a home. We can gut an entire home, literally kitchens, bath, paint, flooring, windows, everything redone, outlets, switches, light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, 7 weeks. We'll be in and out of the home. We have a system to it. We know what fixtures to pick. We know what countertops and cabinets to pick. We got so good at this that it's fast and efficient and very inexpensive to do. Cleaning and staging, and that's another part you want to get done. And obviously we coordinate with all this stuff, right? And then guiding you through the sale of the home and then protecting and advocating for you throughout the way. It's a scary transition for many, the scary transition. And our goal is to remove the stress, because stress is probably the worst enemy to your health, right? Stress is the worst enemy to your health. So in that sense, what if you remove from a stressful environment, you went to a healthier environment, you're likely going to enjoy life a little longer. So before you sell, though, make sure you understand your tax ramifications, right? We talked briefly about this earlier. If you lived in your home 2 out of the last 5 years, the IRS gives you $250,000 tax-free dollars for a single person, $500,000 for a couple. That's a massive, huge savings because there's zero capital. Otherwise, you're paying 7.25% on the state level, up to 20% on the federal level. And if your adjusted gross income is greater than $400,000, you're going to pay another 3.8%. Generally speaking, 25 to 35%, depending on your tax bracket. Yeah, it's significant. It's significant. The way you avoid that, if it's an investment property, you do a 1031 exchange, and none of that happens to you. You'll increase your wealth probably by 25 to 35%. So some tips to downsizing and decluttering. Number one, we use this acronym called SORT. Sell, offer, retain, and toss. If you think of your home, everything in your home has only 4 piles of stuff. And most people say, you haven't seen my house. Yes, true. There's only 4 piles, okay? And keep it simple. Put one area of staging of things that you're going to offer to your family and friends, one dump pile, everything else you're going to keep, right? And it's going to make it easier. The question you want to ask yourself is, do I love it? Because that's the hardest thing, is letting go, right? Letting go of something we've had a long time. Ask yourself a couple questions. When was the last time I used it? Okay. When will I use it again? Or better yet, where's it going to go in my next house? If you can't figure out where it's going to go in your next house, and you don't think you're going to really need it, it'll help you self-discover a better path of letting go, right? This is all about helping you create an easier path to letting go, right? And yeah, it's a real simple process, but it's really not. Most people struggle. Simple but not easy, right? Yeah. So how do I pass on a legacy today? 3 simple steps. If you have an investment property, you could sell the investment property and do what we call a 1031 exchange and buy another replacement property for a loved one. It has to be of equal or greater value to defer all your capital gains tax. And then your loved one's going to have a property when you're gone, tax-free. You're going to be able to pass on every penny to them when you're gone. So the question is, what are you holding on your properties for? And if your answer is it's for my kids, your next question is, do you think you'll ever run out of money? If you know you're not going to run out of money, then why wouldn't you bless them today? Because that's your intent anyways. Bless them today versus wait till you're dead. Right? Because another guy I talked to yesterday, he goes, oh, don't worry about it. I got 3 properties and 3 kids. I figured that out. So, okay, that sounds like you got it all figured out. I only have one question for you. Who gets the first pick? Or should I say, who do you love the most? And keep in mind, these conversations only happen when you're gone. What happens then? All of the historic pilikia in the family is going to rise to the table because mom and dad's gone. There's no judge anymore. And there's real money on the table. They've never seen this amount of wealth in their life. And you're forcing them to make decisions around that wealth, and they're not educated enough to do so. And then there's also spouses that come into play that have other ideas. Can you see why there's so many fights today in families? Because they don't have a plan. So here's a quick example. Mom's a widow, dad passed away, and mom has $1 million property. Let's just say round numbers. And she's got 4 kids, Grant, Lucy, George, and Ann. And at this time, everybody's fine. Everybody loves each other. Thanksgiving, they still have Thanksgiving together. And Christmas time, it's a wonderful time because all the grandkids are fine, right? Everyone's happy. Well, mom says that, I've heard of families fight and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to do a 1031 exchange. I'm going to sell that asset. And you 4 kids, you get to predetermine your inheritance today. You get to predetermine it up to the amount of your portion, $250,000. The best part about this is it can be anywhere in the United States. Why does that work? Because most kids do not want the house in Mo'iliili. They want it wherever they are, wherever their family is, what matters most to them. So mom does that. She sells it. She buys 4. George, Lucy, Grant, and Anne are all excited. At Thanksgiving, George is asking Lucy, hey, did you get the condo for your daughter? Right? And we're bringing families together versus letting them be ripped apart at the end when you're gone. This is what keeps families together, is the clarity that all the kids got what was fair, because that's the biggest issue, the perception of fairness. When you're gone, my first question is, are all your kids alike? No. Do they act alike? No. Do they think alike? No. Are they in the same economic status? No. So what you're doing, if you keep it in your trust until you die, is you're putting them in business together with the most amount of wealth they've ever seen, and they don't agree. How can that be a good thing? Versus pre-plan it and help them get something today. If you want to bless them, why would you hold the blessing until you're gone? Because that's what we all do. We're not going to do anything until we're gone. Why don't you share the blessing today while you're alive? As long as you're not going to run out of money, it makes all the sense in the world. Buy 4 properties, put it in each of the children that we're going to change the trust, and each child gets 1, right? When mom dies, it goes straight to the kids tax-free. There's no decisions to be made. There's no arguments had. There's no feeling and disbelief of fairness because they decided on their replacement property. Right? They got to decide. So real quickly, when should you start planning? Best time's now. The best time's now. Start thinking about what life's going to look like. Right? And I say to people, there's, a lot of folks I see, they say, oh, I play golf. I said, oh, when was the last time you played golf? Oh, 25 years ago. But he still thinks in his head he's playing golf. Right? That's the guy that looks in the past. Then there's a guy that looks down today, and today's, I'm fine. I can walk. I can do everything. I'm fine. Then there's a guy that's looking into the future. The guy that's looking into the future says to himself, what's my health going to be like? What's the health of my spouse going to be like in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years? And they're planning ahead for something that is inevitable. We're never going to get younger. We're never going to get as young as we were and as healthy as we were. And I tell people today, my age and older, I'm going to be 60 this year. How many good summers do you have left? How many good summers do you have left? And why are we waiting for bad to show up and not have a plan? It doesn't make sense. Plan today. If life is good today, then plan for things that you can plan today for something that's going to show up later. Just be prepared is what we're sharing with people around the country to do. And we recommend that you do that. And I think that's it. Any questions?